Hey guys, GhazzyTV here with another Path of Exile video, and in this one I'm going to talk to you guys about what scales minions and what doesn't scale minions, because this is a common problem in the community when it comes to new players specifically, where they don't really understand the way minions scales, because unlike everything else in the game, minions to some degree follows the traditional tag system of gem tags and whatnot. But the problem is that there's a lot more to it than that. So I'm going to give you what I refer to on stream as the minion rant. So the minion rant is very simple. Basically, if a modifier does not specifically state that it will affect minions, you can, in 99% of the time, or 99% of the cases, assume that it does not work on minions. But I'm going to show you a few exceptions to this. So I'm going to show you a POB. And we're going to talk about some modifiers that affects minions and some that doesn't. So we're going to look at this modifier right here that says minions deal 16% increased damage. This will make all of your minions, when this specifically literally means every single minion that you summon will deal increased damage. In the end of story, that's pretty self-explanatory, right? However, if you have a modifier like this that says increased damage, this modifier will make you deal damage, not your minions. So that's the first step. There's a few exceptions. We'll take the exceptions last. Then we have other modifiers. We can take a look at, for example, fire. In here, we have increased fire damage, which is the same type of modifier as increased damage, except that this one only affects fire damage, but still only for you as a player. Then we have fire cast speed somewhere. Somewhere should be like a fire cast speed or whatever, cast speed with fire skills as an example. So if we look at these type of modifiers and we look at a gem such as Raging Spirits, in this case the Raging Spirits is a spell, minion, duration and fire tagged ability. This means that anything that affects spells, minions, duration or fire would affect the Raging Spirit. Now the problem with minions is that there's two components to a minion ability. The first step is that you are essentially summoning your minion. That's step number one. That is why the Raging Spirits is a spell, because you cast a spell. It's not an attack. Yet the Raging Spirits, they attack. The minion themselves attack. And there's no information in-game about this. You have to actually go through the PoEDB or read up guides that will talk about this to learn these things. But essentially what happens with Raging Spirit is that quite a few things. First off, they are summoned by you casting a fire spell. So if you have something as increased cast speed to fire spells, that will make you summon the Raging Spirits faster. If you link them with Spell Echo, for example, well, you're going to cast them faster. But the Spell Echo itself doesn't actually scale the damage of the Raging Spirits, because the Raging Spirits have specific separate stats for themselves. And this is because, again, going back to the minion rant that I usually pull, which is that minions are separate entities. They are not copies of yourself. They're not reflections of yourself. They are not proxies. Examples of proxies would be traps, mines, totems, for example. Traps, mines, and totems, they actually inherit the stats that you have and that you're doing. It's just that the damage is deployed through a proxy. Basically, you're tossing something or doing something that the damage is coming from, rather than coming from you directly. So traps, mines, and totems allows you to be immune or not take any reflected damage, for example, because the damage source comes from that specific proxy. However, the stats that they have comes from your character. Minions doesn't have this. Minions have their own stats, and the way you summon them is from your stats, essentially. So, Raging Spirits, as an example, since we started talking about this, is pretty interesting because of the fact that they are melee attacking minions with a strike skill, and, well, default attack actually, and they have a 100% conversion from physical into fire damage. So they have a minion tag, they also are temporarily summoned minions, so they have a duration tag, and they also have the fire tag, and they also attack. This means that some Raging Spirits will be supported with support gems such as melee physical. You can have elemental damage with attack skills and stuff like that, because these things will actually scale the damage that these separate entities, SRS minions, are actually doing. The SRS itself that you're casting is based on your cast speed or whatever stats you have for that. So this means that if you scale increased fire damage, cast speed with fire damage, and all those things, that will not affect the actual minion. And again, this is not very clear in game, but that's how it works. The exceptions to these rules are very simple. Since we now can assume that if the minion, if the modifier that you have doesn't specifically state that it affects minions, you can assume that it doesn't affect them. This is not entirely true because of a couple of exceptions. And the problem with this is that we're talking about a couple of advanced mechanics in the game, such as inheriting modifiers. But first off, the easy one is Necromantic Aegis. It is a keystone on the tree that makes it so that all bonuses from an equipped shield is applied to your minions instead of you. Now, first things first, when you spec into Necromantic Aegis, you can still use things like shield charge because it will require you to wear a shield. You are still wearing a shield. It's just that the shield has 0 stats, no block, no armor, no energy shield, no evasion, no modifiers, nothing, because all of that is applied to your minions. So if you have increased spell damage on your shield, that would apply to your minions if you're using Necromantic Aegis, but you don't get that damage. If you have something like the standardized Spectre shields we used to use in the past leagues, that gives you minimum charges, those charges will again be applied to your minions instead of you. You're still wearing a shield, and the shield itself has some base block chance. That block chance is again applied to the minions, not you. So that's how the Necromantic Aegis works, which is a way for us to bypass the modifiers not saying that they affect minions to actually do so. The other aspect of inheriting mods is the more advanced method of doing this. So if you look at this helmet, which is the mirror helmet for mage skeletons in the current league, there are a couple of modifiers, such as Socketed Gems are supported by level 20 minion damage. This means that whatever minion gems or whatever gems you have will be supported by minion damage if possible. So minion gems can obviously be supported by minion damage. And the same thing with hypothermia. And then you have Socketed Gems deal 30% more elemental damage. And you also have Socketed Spells have 4% increased critical strike chance, or plus 4% to critical strike chance. So what's really cool with the two last mods I was talking about, the more elemental damage and the crit here, is that they are modifiers that is applied to the actual gem itself. So we know that the SRS gem, for example, has a spell tag. If you look at some skeletons, they have a spell, minion duration, and in this case, a vol tag as well. Since it is a spell gem, the modifier, as you can see on the left-hand side, says Socketed Spells have a plus crit. So what this means is that the gem itself actually gets the plus crit. And when the gem itself has the modifier, then it will be inherited by the minions summoned by the actual gem. This is also why the Socketed Gem deals 30% more elemental damage from the Essence modifier works on minions. As long as the minions are doing elemental damage, they will scale from this modifier, simply because the gem itself gets the modifier, which is inherited by the actual minion. So modifiers that doesn't work for minions that this would be really cool with would be modifiers such as the chest piece from a hunter influenced armor that basically says attacks or spells, for example, have increased or plus to critical strike chance. For example, the last modifier on this astral plate. This one specifically states that the attacks have plus 1.92% to critical strike chance. Now, because of this, the attacks that you're doing will have increased critical strike chance, which is pretty cool, obviously. However, this doesn't apply to minions, even though the minions are attacking. Again, because the minions are not in a situation where they are getting that on the gem itself. So basically, if you then have the Socketed Spells have plus critical strike chance, that would apply to your minions' skills that actually is a spell. That would work theoretically, but the minions don't get it. So what then happens is that the summoning process, this is the tricky part. In reality, the summoning process of your minion gets increased critical strike chance. And that obviously doesn't work for the minions, doesn't get it, because your summoning process doesn't have a hit component. It doesn't do any damage because it can't hit anything. But that part gets increased crit, but not the minions, because the gem hasn't gotten the modifier on itself. It's just that the ability has gotten it. But the minions are not the ability. The minions are summoned from the ability. So I hope this makes some sense and gets you a little bit more information of how to scale and understand how minions work and which modifiers work on them and which does not. This is a very common problem, something I get asked about every league, so I figured we'll make a quick video about this. Hope you guys had use of it. Make sure you hit the like button, subscribe for more content. I'll catch you guys in the next one. Till then, stay safe, keep rocking.